What's up, everybody? I'm Yogi Chris, PhD, and I'm bringing to you a recycled episode from Science of Spiritual Growth podcast here onto this show called Enlightened Masculinity. This is a red pill show about masculinity and spirituality. And this episode I'm bringing you is one of the most important episodes from my other show, Science of Spiritual Growth, which I'm closing out, but it had over 140 episodes on that show. And this is one of the most practical ones. Plus, on my YouTube channel, this is one of the most popular episodes. It has like 40,000 views. It's a technique of how to witness your mind, how to separate from your mind, and very important when it comes to inner transformation, changing your personality, changing your character, changing how you communicate, is separating from your mind, not getting too entangled in it. So this is an actual technique of how to intervene on your mental activity, and also happens to be a very popular episode. So I hope you enjoy. When you hear me refer to Science of Spiritual Growth throughout the episode, it's because it's a recycled episode. So you're watching it here on Enlightened Masculinity. Definitely follow the show, leave a comment, a review, and I look forward to reading your comments. Welcome to Science of Spiritual Growth Thursday podcast. I'm Yogi Chris, PhD, and this is my process, is what I'm talking about today. You know, process is like a sequence of actions that you repeat. I mean, we can look up the actual definition here. That's actually probably a good idea. Process definition. Making a, where's the definition? This is just a bunch of other stuff. Running a program, these are computer definitions. Anyway, I don't need to look up the definition. You know, a process is something that you can repeat over and over. There's a process to teach. It's a system of with a syntax or an organization of how to do actions one after the other. So it's a process. My process. There's a process to waking. To wake, there's a process to sleeping. Then there's waking. Then there's what do you do when you wake? And what do you do throughout the day? And then the evening. Throughout that, there's eating. Where do you put that in? There's everything that you do, the hygiene, and then there's business and how you pull money towards you and how you use your money, because there's living expenses. And everything, what is not part of your process? What would you say is not part of your routine? Because that's where the world has you by the nuts, really, spiritual nuts. Wherever you're doing that's not part of your, let's say you're practicing yoga, you're stretching a little bit. You got 30 minutes to dedicate to me time. This is me time. I wake up, I use the bathroom, I freshen, make my space, and then boom, me time. 30 minutes. Okay, done with me time. Now what? Like, when does the process end where I stop caring for myself, or, whatever? Everything is in flux and everything is exchange, and you get out what you put in. There's definitely a time of the day that's for self-focused. There's a part of the day that's, you could call it other focused, but I'm always involved in that. I'm part of that. And if I ever lose me in that, then my outside actions aren't as good. When you're not self-aware, or let's change the color up in here. Self-aware, or when you're lost in the actions, the mind, the mental activity about what's happening. My teacher has been reawakening my appreciation in this distinction, how deep the distinction goes. And I see even clearer the spirituality or the spiritual teachings. They're very true in many lineages. Like I was telling Alec earlier, a lot of this stuff about the mind is very ancient. And when you go ancient, it only has so many lineages that you go back to. Where are you going to go? Egypt, Maya, maybe you go to Atlantis, you could go Sumerian. Yeah, Roman, Greek, Egypt, Sumerian. There's like a lineage there. Himalayan and the Indus Valley. And then, you could go all the way back even to the Tower of Babel. You want purple? I'll give it to you, because no one ever requests a color. Is that purple? I don't know. I'm colorblind, really. Is that purple? I don't know which one's purple, actually. There. But we'll go green for now, because I know that. It says G on it, so I know it's green. That's how they discovered, by the way, I was colorblind, because I colored a deer green, and I didn't know. Just looked brown to me. I was telling you, Alec, yeah, so when you go back far enough, and it goes back supposedly to, let's say, the Tower of Babel, which is maybe 10 or 12,000 years old, and the last stronghold of blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into it, really, that kind of history. But the mind is happening everywhere just the same. It's filled with different patterns, different behaviors, different symbols, different experiences, but it's the mind. If you were born and transported somewhere else in the world, you'd grow up with a mind from that part of the world. You'd maybe have some genetic karma, some thoughts that come from your genes, so what do they call it? What's the word they use in evolutionary psychology? It's like a insult. Yeah, an environment. They use this term. It's like a scientific term, an environmental insult. When the environment creates some kind of trauma in you or something like that. So that's why symmetry is such a health indicator, because it shows that you have the genes that resist environmental insults and so on. So why was I saying that? The mind, a distinction of the mind, the lineage, the science of the mind. Like, how many different ways are you going to describe gravity? Or how many different ways can you describe light, photons and light, wavicles, waves and particles? The science, people know this in sorcery, like the magic, it has its own flavor, but it's tapping into the similar mechanics of the universe. It's the physics of the universe. And the mind is part of the universe. It has a physics to it, and yoga is, when the physical yoga is a means to train and tame the body, to get in tune with the energy pathways of the body, and it will naturally happen. This part will happen. You'll naturally become aware, if you practice, of your mind happening while you're stretching and breathing. You'll make a distinction that, I'm thinking something, but I'm also thinking about doing this stretch, but I'm thinking this other thing, and I'm trying to not think that thing, but I have enough awareness to know that I'm not in control of it. I'm thinking something and I can't not think it, even though I'm really trying to be hella focused on this thing right here, this stretch. And it'll be frustrating. You'll notice sometimes you can let it go, but you were reacting to it until you noticed the thought. And then when you noticed it, it kind of faded away and the body let go of whatever the reaction to the thinking was. You start to just over time develop this awareness of, I'm reacting to my thinking. I'm reacting to my thinking. I'm always reacting to my thinking. That the yoga posture is physical, but it's an embodiment of a mental, that the mental came first and I'm embodying this. But I go through these little fluctuations throughout my day, depending on what I'm thinking about. Mood and attitude and emotions in this thing comes from what I'm thinking about. And if I think about the same thing over and over, repeat it, I what Arash calls internalize it, where you stop knowing that you're saying it to yourself. You stop knowing you're thinking about that all the time. So you carry it with you, not knowing what you're saying to yourself. It's internalized. And it has to do with our impressions, how we were treated as kids, what was said to us, and then on in all kinds of situations. Like, I think sometimes I've been knocked unconscious, like in the wrestling room. I wonder what was said around me when I was, unquote, unconscious. It's just the conscious mind was knocked out, but my heart kept beating. I kept breathing. So there was a part of my intelligence still awake, firing those neurons in the right patterns that made all the organs, like nothing. I didn't die in any way. It's just the conscious awareness of my senses went out. But did the senses stop? So that would be the idea of like engrams or whatever, of like recording, continuing to record, even though the conscious mind is more or less out. Same thing when like you're drunk or whatever, although it gets garbled. All right. So my process is the process of, okay, so it started with yoga practice, boom, do some yoga poses and practice daily, because it was so freeing for my mind and body. I didn't know the language at the time, but I knew I had tension, and it felt good after I stretched and breathed. And, I felt good for some time. I would notice it would fade. So I noticed it gave me a sort of elevated experience where I was just so comfortable in my skin, but it would fade. And like throughout the day, sometimes I would skip days or weeks even. And I would recollect that time. So I wouldn't be devoting 30, or I was practicing 1 or 2 hours, but let's say 30 minutes or whatever. You reclaim that time. You could watch that show or send those messages or chill out or go for a walk. There's so much you want to do. It's your life, but you sacrifice your posture, gradually not correcting it. And so your consciousness it's like, how water fills its vessel, or to the shape of its vessel, or air just forms to the shape of its vessel. It's like your mind is forming into the shape of your vessel. Like, what does it look like from the outside? Like your mind is filling that. It's in it. That's what's going on. So grounding is put your mind in your body, feel your body, be it. It's not you, because you're not your mind either. You're observing it. And my process started with doing that, recognizing the mind. I was stretching every day. I would get burned out and just reclaim that time and do my fun activities. But I would feel worse and worse and worse daily, just gradually in my skin, like my posture. I didn't know anatomy, but I could feel like my bones didn't feel right. I'd wrestled for years. I had all kinds of tension patterns. I lived just like everybody else on a computer or a phone and driving. And it's just like narrow posture. As I got older and out of athletics, there was no activity really to, like, what did I lift weights, or what am I going to do? So I took to yoga, and now I have another thing, which is gym calisthenics. Like I can basically work out anywhere in a heavy workout with just a pull up and dip bar. And without those, I can still get a pretty good fucking workout. Or I could do my yoga, and that's incredible too. And every day I did both, actually, just so you know, for 6 months. So these last 6 months, now I'm on phase 2, which is a different process. So I started with stretching just because it gave so much relief to my life, and it fed so much balance to my life. It helped relieve tension. I was better at everything. I recognized my mind after some time when I came into touch and in tune with Arashti Bazaar. And probably all the things I'd studied up until then warmed me up for that, made me ready for it. Because at my first exposure, I actually didn't take to it. I did not like it. I liked it, but I remember not taking to it. I went another way. A year later, I circled back around for whatever reason, Facebook or YouTube or something, like shared a video. I somehow saw it. I got hella into it. And you could call it like a technology. Now I would use the word technology, but the words and the way of communicating, the communication, really. The communication is the technology. Senior, but dependent on the others. You could be a great communicator and leave your body behind. And that's actually not a good communication, because what does that communicate to the world? The process, my process, then became, because the yoga movements, there's an intelligence that comes with how you treat your body, how you use your body. If let's say you were a competition archer, you would shoot arrows, and you were very familiar with this and the idea of lining up the sight and down the target, and how to lead a target, and how to compensate for wind and the arch of gravity. You would get a sense of this motion. It would mean something to have some power. Maybe you'd have a sense of wind, of gravity, depending on it'd be the same thing if you were a Frisbee golfer or a regular golfer. You account for wind and the material and the temperature and the humidity. And even if you don't measure it like with words like that, there's a sense of it. You would naturally, you have to. That's what happens. If you wrestle, you get a natural sense of like gravity, and are you upside down? Are you on your side, or are you toppled? Like you get a feel for like rolling around. Soccer, you get a feel for where the ball is even when you're not touching the ball. You just know. It's like you don't look down, you look up. You get an intelligence. So even when you're not playing soccer, you're aware of where your feet are. You know? Martial arts, you're aware. You know, the guy could be blind and have awarenesses. The guy could perceive the aggressive intention of somebody long before other people do, if he's trained in martial arts, the art of war. So you get a sense for those activities that you partake in a lot. You partake in a lot of yoga, you get a sense for bones and joints and muscles and range of motion and breathing and all of the physiology and everything. You just get a sense of it has to happen. You'll either make up a story for yourself based on your experience as you do it, or maybe you'll pick up a book of science that's already labeled and categorized these experiences, or ancient science that's already labeled and categorized mental states and experiences that we now have new English or new language to describe the same old phenomenon of the mind and soul and spirit, of the emotions, the energy, maybe some of it's outdated, maybe some of it's trivial, but it is describing the same essential experience that we have a lot more words to describe. And by looking at them all, really, we get a better picture of what it is. But here's what it is, and this is what the process yields. What it is the mind. It's all the mind. It's all mental interpretations of what is. But we need the mind, supposedly, maybe, to organize. What are we going to be telepathic? That's going to be in the mind too. All is mind is the first principle that's tattooed at the back of my skull. But when I do not know, thanks, Kat. When I do not know when my mind is how do I say this? The mind is to be used. We are not to be used by the mind. And it is always one or the other. Unless, I guess there's a third alternative is the mind, no mind. So neither the mind is being used or is it using me. These are states that we get glimpses of perhaps. But even then, I mean, there's depths of karmic seeds. So even when we're sitting still, not thinking anything, why are we sitting still? Why are we in this house? Why are we geographically in this area? All of these are the result of mental decisions we've made in our past. We're here because of our mind. So even if we drop our minds now, we're still living out the karma of our past mind. So we're not free totally, because eventually the world will come looking for us because we haven't resolved all our karmas. We still owe things. Right. Okay. Cobalt, what's up? Come to Zoom. Everybody come to Zoom. You shouldn't be anywhere else. Zoom is where it's at. Okay. So the process is when you're not aware that your mind is happening between you and the world, when it's talking to you or you're getting a picture in your head and it's not what you're seeing. See, you can imagine, you can put it there, but it's also, you got to be aware of when, that's what I'm saying. You're either using it or it's using you. Is the environment making you think something, or are you creating a thought despite the environment? Your level of control, are you yin? It's making you think away, or are you yang? You are thinking away and creating your way. And the process, whatever your process is for me, my process yields discernment to discern and distinguish when am I yin or yang with my mind right now. And to what level? There's depths to this. Like I said, like I just said in so many examples, actually. So it's discernment of when my mind is getting in the way of me and what's going on. When is it using me? When am I in control here? And This yoga really helps in this also, because with the sensation and the awareness of circulation and circulation of blood and circulation of other and just the organs and how you push your body around inside your soft tissue. Inside awareness gives you awareness in when you feel a contraction or when you feel small at some other time in the day, when you're living and something from the environment closes you inside. Yoga gives you good sensitivity. Good yoga practice gives you good sensitivity inside when I just closed, even though I didn't tell myself to close. I just felt it close, and I wonder why. And so you start to catch the environment is triggering. You are literally a robotic machine, biological. You're like a biological robotic machine with a consciousness in you, able to separate from the animal body that has sophisticatedly patterned to operate cell phones and computers and memorize all of human history. Very smart, very, very smart animal, able to house a very, able to really express a lot of capabilities of the soul. But that expression has been stifled through suppressive mind programming, which is just patterning. It doesn't have to be so insidious that your parents sat down and did this. Maybe they did. Some people have that experience, but a lot of it is just learn and repeat, learn and slightly modify and repeat, learn and slightly modify and compete with others for mates and repeat. And it's gradual. It's getting better. Now with the awakening of quarantine, it's getting ridiculous with what the other side has been up to, really. So mass awakening, age of Aquarius, whatever this is, next 10 years are going to be very exciting. Okay, so in 15 minutes, I start my base meeting. So that'll end this recording. If you like it, subscribe, follow, comment, share, and go to ninthlimb.com. Check out the silent flute. That's where I would be going deeper right now. I just kind of painted a very hellish picture for everybody. I should give some techniques actually for how to release yoga. Just go to my YouTube, YouTube. You find any yoga videos there, practice some yoga, release all that tension. Actually, I think I awakened a lot of awareness in people because I did in myself, and I am like you. So that's that. And we'll play a song. Stick around for a minute because I don't really want to go anywhere before this meeting. I might step out for a second. And if you want to stick around, we can do Q&A. All right? Oh, namaste.